Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel. Today I'll be talking on ECG reading, how you start reading an ECG. In a previous lecture, we already done regarding what is normal ECG. So again, we'll be starting with how you read an ECG. I've already told you that you will see only what you look for and you will recognize only what you know and you will remember only what you understand. So I'll try to make it as simple as possible so that you can understand very nicely. And remember that more we learn, less we know because there are many more things to learn. So we'll be starting with an ECG reading. You must go on reading an ECG on your own and try to find out what is the ECG interpretation. Don't go through the reading what is given on an ECG paper, which is by a computer. So never diagnose only the ECG. Always ask for a previous ECG and go through a clinical data. And with that, you try to come to the nearmost diagnosis. Now in this ECG, you can see that there is a nice labeling which is being done. Date, time, patient ID number, age, sex, everything is being mentioned. Even you can see the standardization, that is what we call as a voltage, has been standardized before each lead. You can see clearly. And at the bottom, it is written 25 millimeter per second and 10 millimeter for millivolt, 10 millimeter for 1 millivolt. So this is a proper ECG taken. And in this, you can see that it is a 3-lead ECG where minimum more than 3 complexes are there, and there is one rhythm strip, and it is a long rhythm strip. So when you start reading an ECG, always keep a watch. Look for the quality. Quality wise, labeling should be proper. See here the report has been given, but don't rely on this report. Try to read on your own. Here again, it is a 3-lead at a time. There are 3 complexes in each lead, and there is one rhythm strip, lead 2. This is a rhythm strip. So this is the ECG, and you try to read that way. Always look at the patient name, date. Is there any particular things what is being mentioned on the ECG paper, or have a reference later and try to find out for what purpose the ECG is being taken. And is there any disturbances in any one of the lead? Look at the speed. It should be 25 millimeter per second, and look at the amplitude charge. We call it should be 10 millimeter for 1 millivolt. After checking the labeling what is being done properly, this is for medical purpose and you must confirm before giving a report, and try to identify the name properly, date of birth, time, date, when it is taken, etc. And also if possible, try to find out the indication for what purpose this ECG was taken and compare with the previous ECG or the next ECG what you are going to take after some period. We call subsequent ECG. This should be done. It is a part of a serial ECG sequence. What should be done? Now look at this ECG. You can see that here this is a normal QRS complex, P wave, normal QRS complex, and suddenly there is a electrical disturbance. Here also you can see same, and there are a lot of electrical disturbance. Now this is because of the muscle tremor. Such ECG you cannot read. It will give you wrong interpretation. Now any ECG when you see, you must look at the what we call as the isoelectric baseline. So isoelectric baseline should be straight. You can see this isoelectric line. It should be straight. It should not be this way. See here. This ECG baseline is going down and then going up. This is wandering baseline. Such ECG should not be taken for reading purpose. You should repeat an ECG and then only try to read that particular ECG. Repeat the ECG and then take it. See here in this ECG, there are a lot of disturbances in this baseline. This is because of electronic disturbance, AC interference. Such ECG are taken as a faulty. Now here you can see that there is a straight line. There are no QRS complex. Ideally, when the person is asked to lie down in a supine posture and you start taking an ECG, and if you see this particular line, it is usually because of the faulty cable connections, whether it is loose or it is broken, or sometime it is not connected properly. So try to rule out that. But when you see such ECG while you are taking and person is unconscious, there is no pulse, no blood pressure, do suspect ventricular asystole. It is not because of the disturbances in connection. So try to rule out that. And it is an emergency. When you start reading an ECG, you have to read rate, rhythm, axis, P wave, QRS complex, T wave, PR interval, ST segment, QT interval, and any other abnormality which you can make out. And then give the final diagnosis with the help of clinical history, previous ECG, and recent ECG. Try to come to the nearmost diagnosis. So here I have kept how you go to read an ECG. First, always look at the standardization. Usually all ECG are taken at one standardization, what we call as a 10 millimeter is equal to 1 millivolt. In some ECG, you can take an ECG at a half standardization. We'll be talking in a further part. Or at a 2 standardization, means 20 millimeter for 1 millivolt. So this will be what we call as a standardization. And speed, routinely we take all ECG at 25 millimeter per second. But once in a while you can have an ECG at 50 millimeter per second. We'll be talking when you take that. Then look at the voltage of QRS complex. Look at the axis of QRS complex. Then calculate the atrial rate, ventricular rate. Look at the rhythm, whether it is regular, irregular, and if it is irregular, it is regularly irregular or irregularly irregular. And then look at the rhythm as far as the pacemaker origin is concerned, sinus, atrial, nodal, or we call junctional, or ventricular, or it is a paced rhythm because of pacemaker. Then we start going through all the different components of ECG complex, that is P wave, PR interval, QRS complex, and in each what you look for. I've just mentioned here, but we'll be going through individually in a separate lectures. Say like in QRS, we go for the voltage criteria, which is normal, high or low. As far as the duration is concerned, it is normal or it is prolonged. Then Q wave, it is normal or deep. R wave, S wave, etc. In PR interval is normal, short or prolonged. Then ST segment, it is isoelectric, depressed or elevated. T wave is normal, tall, low, inverted, elevated along with ST segment. U wave, QT interval, abnormal bits like SVP bits, ventricular premature bits, etc. or atrial premature bits. Arrhythmias, different types of arrhythmias. Is there any ECG changes because of drugs, or is there any changes because of the electrolytes like calcium, potassium, magnesium, or any miscellaneous disorders which produces ECG changes? All this should be looked for and then only give the final diagnosis. Now you know very well, any ECG when it is taken, you have got all these components. We have got component P wave, PR interval, QRS complex, ST segment, T wave, followed by a small upright wave, U wave. Usually this U wave is not seen, it is seen in a selective some of the conditions only. And try to look at the ECG paper and whether the isoelectric line is proper or not. After looking at all these particular things, you look at the ECG recording, whether the speed is mentioned or not, and before each lead you will have this standardization which will be shown. Usually it will be 10 millimeter standardization, which means 10 millimeter is equal to 1 millivolt, and speed will be usually mentioned either at the bottom or at the top of ECG paper. So look at that particular speed, it should be 25 millimeter per second, and that tells you that this particular ECG is a proper standardization with proper speed. So after looking at that standardization and speed, then only you should try to read that particular ECG. So, and rhythm strip should be minimum for 6 seconds, or it may be taken for a longer period also. So this is a 6-second paper, and you can see here every 3 seconds there are 15 large boxes, and then there is a mark, and this vertical mark tells you that this is a 3-second paper. This helps in calculating the heart rate. So usually you take a 6-second long strip if you want to calculate the heart rate, whether it is regular or irregular. Now you can see that this is a paper which shows you a smallest square, and then this is a large one single box. This is a little large box which contains 5 small boxes in horizontal and 5 small boxes in vertical. We have already shown you what does that interpret. One small box in horizontal level is 0.04 second, and in vertical height it is 1 millimeter is equal to 0.1 millivolt. So remember this. This is a small box, and large box will indicate 5 millimeter paper. So 5 millimeter is equal to 0.5 millivolt in vertical height. This is a vertical height, and in horizontal it will be 0.2 second. So accordingly you will have to calculate. So that is how it is being done, and on each paper it will be always mentioned what is the speed and what is the standardization. So by and large it is always at 25 millimeter per second. So this is that particular standardization. Now if you take an ECG at half amplitude, that is we call 5 millimeter is equal to 1 millivolt. This will be taken if while taking on a one standardization, or what we call as a 10 millimeter per 1 millivolt, if QRS complex are very big, then only it is taken at half standardization, or we call as a 5 millimeter is equal to 1 millivolt. That will cut down the size to half, and this is only in case of a very high voltage in QRS complex to see the entire QRS complex. While opposite of that, in case of a low voltage QRS, if QRS is very small, the amplitude of QRS is 2 millimeter, 3 millimeter, and you can't see the QRS complex clearly, the ECG can be taken at 20 millimeter equal to 1 millivolt, which will increase the size of QRS complex double the original size. And it will be always, before reading, look at the amplitude of standardization. If it is 20 millimeter, it is at a 2 standardization, and if it is 5 millimeter, it is at a half standardization, or we call it a half amplitude, and this is double amplitude, and this is normal amplitude. Always it is taken at the normal amplitude. Half amplitude is taken only when the QRS complex is very big, or we call it a very high voltage, and double amplitude is done whenever there is a QRS complex which is of a very low amplitude. So this is how it is being taken. So that is regarding standardization. While speed wise, all ECG are taken at 25 millimeter per second, but whenever the person has got a severe tachycardia and T wave and P wave are overlapping, you can't make out where is the T wave, where is the P wave, and QRS complex is very narrow. To separate the distance between the two QRS complex, it is taken as a 50 millimeter per second. So it will increase the RR interval double the original RR interval. And by doing this, you can differentiate sometime T wave from the P wave overlapping. This is rarely being done. Mainly it is done when the person is having a severe tachycardia, but not commonly being done. So now whenever you start reading an ECG, first we look at the voltage. Now after doing quality of the X-ray, standardization regarding amplitude and duration, that is speed, now you look at the voltage. For a voltage of QRS complex, you must look in a limb leads and in a chest leads. If the voltage of QRS complex is more than 25 small square, in any leads, it is always a high voltage. But by and large, such amplitude you will see only in a chest leads. But if you see in a limb leads, voltage of QRS complex is less than 5 small square, it is in favor of a low voltage QRS complexes. Low voltage QRS complexes you will see very commonly in obesity, emphysema, COPD, pericardial effusion, cardiac tamponade, constrictive pericarditis, and severe congestive cardiac failure. In all this group, if you look at the voltage in chest leads, it will be less than 10 millimeter in a chest lead and less than 5 millimeter in limb leads, that is lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, AVR, AVL, AVF, in those leads. By high voltage, usually we look in case of chest leads, and if the QRS complex is tall, more than 25 millimeter or even 30 millimeter, we call that as high voltage. And high voltage you will see classical in case of a hypertrophy of a myocardium, and that will be in a left ventricular hypertrophy and right ventricular hypertrophy. You will also see such high voltage QRS complex, but they will be broad and high voltage in left bundle branch block and right bundle branch block. And in a ventricular complexes, we call ventricular rhythm, like ventricular premature beat, ventricular tachycardia, and also sometime in a case of a complete heart block. In those also you can see a high voltage QRS complex. There is another variety of QRS complex voltage you will see in a chest leads as well as in a limb leads. We call electrical alterance, where one QRS complex is little good amplitude, second QRS complex is of a less amplitude, and this is alternating, and that's why it is called electrical alterance, and it is classical in case of a severe congestive cardiac failure, more common in a left ventricular failure, and also you can see in a case of a cardiac tamponade. And there are another conditions where you can have a low voltage like generalized anasarca, pneumothorax, massive pleural effusion, particularly if it is on the left side, pericardial effusion, obesity, emphysema, hypothyroidism, and even myocardial disease like amyloidosis. This is typical ECG showing you electrical alterance. You can see that one ECG is of a good voltage, second ECG complex is of a little low voltage, good voltage, low voltage, good voltage, low voltage, alternate. This will be typically seen in a case of a severe congestive heart failure and in case of a cardiac tamponade. Now we go to what we call as an electrical axis. To identify the electrical axis, usually there are different techniques which are being utilized. Here there is a small chart which shows you that if the axis is between minus 30 to minus 90, it is a left axis. If it is between minus 30 to plus 90, it is a normal axis. From plus 90 to plus 180, it is a right axis deviation. And if it is more than 180, plus 180 to minus 90, it is called indeterminate axis or extreme right axis or no man's land or not with axis. These are the terms which are being utilized. So these are some of the terms which are utilized to while you are identifying the axis or we call vector of a ventricular components. right axis deviation, normal axis, left axis deviation, extreme right axis deviation. These are the few words which are being utilized. And this is a diagram showing you a same thing and relation with different complexes. This is AVL, which corresponds to minus 30 degree, lead 1 corresponds to 0, lead 2 corresponds to plus 60 degree axis, AVF corresponds to plus 90 degree, lead 3 corresponds to plus 120, and AVR corresponds to minus 150 degree. And they are taken into account while calculating cardiac axis. Now this is that particular one diagram which shows you similar thing, that left axis is between 30 to 90, minus 90, minus 30 to plus 90 is a normal axis, from plus 90 to 180 is a right axis deviation, and from plus 182 we call minus 90 is extreme right axis or not wet axis or no man's land. These are the words which are being commonly utilized. While calculating the axis is helpful in some of the conditions. So while calculating, you have to look at the QRS complex. If QRS complex positive wave is taller than negative wave, it is considered as positive. And if the negative wave is taller than positive wave, it is considered as a negative wave. But when both are equal, positive and negative wave are equal, it is called equipolar deflection. So you can utilize 2-lead method, 3-lead method, or hexaaxial, etc. These are the different techniques which you can utilize. By and large, it is a 2-lead or a 3-lead method is a commonly utilized. 2 leads which are taken are commonly lead 1 and below you put lead 3 or AVF. Now you can look here. In lead 1 it is upright. This is also upright. This is normal axis. If lead 1 has got a negative axis and lead 3 is positive or AVF is positive, then it is considered as right axis deviation. And if lead 1 is positive and lead 3 is negative, it is considered as a left axis deviation. I'll be showing you one simple diagram which will tell you all the different types of axis. Now here you can see lead 1 and you are comparing with AVF or lead 3, most common. If both are positive, it is normal axis. Lead 1 is positive and lead AVF or lead 3 is negative, it is a left axis deviation. We call both are going in opposite direction. If lead 1 is negative and lead 3 and AVF is positive, right mix, we call right axis deviation. And if both are negative, then it is extreme right axis or intermediate axis or indeterminate axis, undeterminate axis, no man's lands, or sometimes it is called north-west axis also. So same thing is shown here, that if you compare lead 1 by lead 2 or you compare lead 1 by AVF, whichever you lead take, best is lead 1 and AVF. If both are negative, it is extreme right axis deviation. If both are positive, it is normal axis. If lead 1 is positive and AVF is negative, left axis deviation. If lead 1 is negative and AVF is positive, it is a right axis deviation. And after looking at this, you can see even if you compare lead 1 to lead 2 and lead 3, it is almost nearly the same. So whenever there is a left axis deviation, it is very commonly seen in left anterior fascicular block, or we call as a left anterior hemi block. In case of an inferior wall MI, also you can have a left axis deviation. Inferior wall MI with a left anterior fascicle block is quite common, so that can also show you a left axis deviation. Good number of cases of LVH will also show left axis deviation. Left bundle branch block will also have a left axis deviation. WPW syndrome with a right side accessory pathway will have a left axis deviation. Emphysema and hyperkalemia will also show left axis deviation. Out of this, LVH, left bundle branch block, and LAHB, these three comes most common causes for left axis deviation. So do remember, for left axis deviation, LVH, left bundle branch block, and left anterior hemi block, or we call left anterior fascicular block are the commonest causes for left axis deviation. So this is LVH, inferior wall MI, obesity, left bundle branch block, and left anterior fascicular block. While right axis deviation is very common with, which means lead 1 has got negative and lead 3 AVF is positive. Left posterior fascicular block, or we call left posterior hemi block, which is very rare, not common. RVH will definitely produce a right axis deviation. In a lateral wall infarct, good number of time there will be right axis deviation. RBBB, in very few conditions you will have a right axis deviation, and if RBBB is with right axis deviation, it is very commonly associated with bifascicular block, that is person is having RBBB plus left posterior hemi block. And in a WPW syndrome, if there is a left side accessory pathway, in that case you can have a right axis deviation, and good number of time it can be normal. So by and large it is RVH, left posterior hemi block, and some cases of right bundle branch block. Don't forget dextrocardia, and in a WPW syndrome with left side accessory pathway. So these are RVH, lateral wall MI, emphysematous patient, and all we call is a vertical heart. We usually use the word vertical heart, and left posterior hemi block. These are the conditions. This is again the same thing, left axis deviation common with LVH, left bundle branch block, left anterior hemi block. These three comes topmost on the list. WPW syndrome with a right side accessory pathway, and also in a case of a hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. While right axis deviation in RVH, right bundle branch block, very few cases, and left posterior hemi block. Particularly in case of an emphysema, acute corpuscular, you can have a right axis deviation, and also in a case of a Fallot's tetralogy. Don't forget dextrocardia with atrial septal defects. While if you come across an extreme right axis deviation, also it is called as a northwest territory, no man's land, indeterminate or underterminant. Usually this is very common in emphysema, hyperkalemia, when leads, chest leads are not kept properly. Then also you can have limb leads transposition takes place. In a case of artificial cardiac pacing, also you can get sometime extreme right axis deviation, and in some cases of ventricular tachycardia, where lead 1 and AVF both are negative. Do keep it in mind. This can be seen in some of the ECGs. So this is called extreme right axis deviation. You will also have in some condition, particularly dextrocardia and hypertension, dextrocardia and emphysema, I already mentioned. Some of the congenital heart disease like transposition of great vessels. There is another technique by which you can calculate the axis, is called isoelectric limb lead method. This is a little complicated, so I will not be going into detail, but I will just give you a little idea that find out which is isoelectric. Find out the lead, inner limb leads, which is R and S are nearly equal. And now choose the correct perpendicular axis to that particular lead. And then do a fine tuning. This is little tedious, but don't try to calculate the axis by this. The simple most is lead 1 upon either lead 3 or AVF. It is a simple most way, but whenever you are in doubt, you can utilize this. It is called a three easy steps, where you can use an isoelectric lead, choose the perpendicular, and then do a fine tuning. This is that particular technique. You can go at your leisure time. This is that particular technique by which you can utilize and try to calculate the axis. So here I end my lecture. So I hope this will be helpful to you, and we'll be going through the next lecture next day.